Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Board Director, Superintendent Larios, our guests and staff. Thank you for joining us today, for those of you who are in person and for those joining us online. It is now 5:45 and I will call this regular board meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as you will see, we have the agenda here before us. We do have a couple changes to make on the agenda for today. We were scheduled to have an executive session at 6:45, which we no longer need to do. We also received a board member's resignation earlier today, so I would like to move that we amend and adopt the agenda with the following changes: removing executive session and to add board member resignation and vacancy timeline to new business. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-0. So at this time, I will now recess the regular meeting and convene at 6:45 PM. So thank you. So we will come back at 6:45. Under. Let's try this again. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah, hear me. How about now? Okay. Well, welcome back. We will now go ahead and start our regular board meeting at 6:45. Next item on the agenda is public comment. So thank you for being at the Woodburn School District Board meeting tonight and for sharing your comments with the board. Hearing from our families and our community is important to us. During this section, the board's role is to listen. We will not be engaging in dialogue with folks making comments. When follow-up is warranted, that will usually be done through our superintendent. As a reminder, we model the way for our children. Please keep your comments respectful and do not personally identify staff or students by name, as this may violate HR and student privacy laws. We want to leave time for everyone, so please keep your comments to 3 minutes per person. Thank you. So I would like to invite Montserrat Pantoja to read their public comments.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Montserrat Pantoja. He vivido en Woodburn por 23 años y tengo 4 hijos en el distrito escolar, en las escuelas High School, French Perry y Lincoln. Estoy aquí para expresar mi firme apoyo en continuar y expandir el programa de lenguaje Duo dentro de nuestro distrito escolar. El programa de lenguaje Duo desempeña un papel crucial al ayudar a los estudiantes a mantenerse conectados con sus raíces culturales, brindar apoyo esencial a los estudiantes que no hablan inglés como su primer idioma y asegurar que los estudiantes no se encuentren con puertas cerradas y oportunidades perdidas al fomentar al ser bilingües en un lugar de monolingües. Es fundamental que los estudiantes mantengan su conexión con su herencia, cultura e idioma. El programa de lenguaje Duo no solo permite que los estudiantes preserven sus identidades y tradiciones, sino que también les ayuda a desarrollar una comprensión más profunda y aprecio a la diversidad, al fomentar su idioma materno junto con el inglés. Los estudiantes pueden construir una base sólida que respalde su éxito académico y bienestar socioemocional. Además, el programa de lenguaje Duo sirve como un recurso vital para los estudiantes que no son fluidos en inglés, al ofrecer un entorno de aprendizaje solidario e inclusivo. El programa ayuda a estos estudiantes a prosperar académica y socialmente. Les proporciona las habilidades lingüísticas necesarias para sobresalir en todas las áreas de su educación y los prepara para un futuro exitoso en el mundo cada vez más interconectado. Además, al aprender a ser bilingües a través del programa de lenguaje Duo, abre un mundo de oportunidades a los estudiantes en la sociedad globalizada de hoy. Ser bilingüe es algo muy valioso que mejora las habilidades de la comunicación, la competencia cultural y la flexibilidad cognitiva. Al alternar a los estudiantes a mantener y desarrollar el dominio de varios idiomas, los empoderamos a enfrentar los desafíos del mundo actual y futuros con confianza y éxito. Gracias por su atención, consideración respecto a este asunto tan importante para nuestra comunidad escolar.
Gracias. Next, I would like to invite Erin Hanlon. Erin Hanlon. You can't hear me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Erin Hanlon, and I'm a teacher at French Prairie Middle School. I joined the district in 2016, and I was so impressed. I had been in schools where they said they were PBIS schools, but those schools never allowed students to reflect and change their behavior. They put up signs, but did not ask students to do the thinking required. Over the last 8 years, there have been many changes in my school's administration. PBIS, or Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, remained a backbone within our school. If a student was disrespectful, unsafe, or irresponsible, the system was made to give them a chance to redirect themselves. The way our school made that time was by allowing students and teachers to pause until the problem could be worked through. This year, we learned we could no longer use pauses out of the classroom to change a student's behavior. We switched instead to in-class reflections. With no middle step to ask a student to consider how to meet behavior expectations, we are left with 2 options: work in an increasingly hostile environment with constant disruptions to learning, or writing behavior referrals. As the year goes on, student behavior continues to escalate because consequences for inappropriate behavior are lacking, delayed, or not available to us. This year, gang regalia and signals are throughout our hallways, and discussion of drugs and violence is common. The multi-tiered system of support in our schools seems to be cycling students through ongoing broken safety contracts. I do not know when I'm walking into a dangerous situation, as safety is no longer the norm. If I do not have a specific dangerous student, I will not be made aware of his or her safety plan. Yesterday, I saw a student leave a peer's room with a meter stick. I walked after the student, asked for it, and returned it to the teacher. I described the student, and she explained that the student has thrown a chair at her in the past. I asked the school board to spend time in our school and to talk with teachers and students about what we are experiencing to create a safer school. Post-COVID, the need for student support is high. We need adequate staffing to meet academic and behavioral needs. Teachers also need to be able to maintain the school-wide expectations of what it means to be safe, respectful, and responsible within our classes so we can teach.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Denise Pisa.
Hello, my name is Denise Pisa, as a concerned member of the Woodburn community and a mother of 5, I'm deeply invested in the well-being of our students. I'm compelled to address recent alarming decisions made by the Woodburn School Board. The board's choices in making decisions that do not align with the community's values are cause for major concern. Notably, discussions surrounding the reintroduction of school resource officers, SROs, in our schools raised red flags. This proposed initiative threatens to divert crucial funding away from providing essential personnel and wraparound services that are greatly needed to support our students and families. Instead of considering punitive measures such as SRO programs, it is imperative to prioritize restorative justice practices that foster a culture of inclusivity, understanding, and support among students, staff, and families. Moreover, recent actions by the Woodburn School Board, such as selecting family members to serve on a budget committee and appointing a superintendent without seeking the input from the community, further underscore the need for accountability and transparency in decision-making processes. The safety and well-being of our students must remain a top priority. By investing in comprehensive wraparound services and promoting restorative justice practices, we can effectively address the underlying issues, nurture a positive school environment, and enhance the overall educational experience for all students. As elected officials, the members of the Woodburn School Board have a duty to be voices for the entire community, not just those who align with their personal agendas. It is essential that the board represents and advocates for the diverse perspectives and values of all community members. We need to work together to ensure that our schools prioritize student safety, community input, and restorative justice practices to create a safe and supportive learning environment for all.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Tony Saul.
Good evening. I'm privileged to have been an educator in this vibrant, amazing, multicultural community of Woodburn for the past 32 years. I've been here long enough to have colleagues who were once my students and even students who are children of my former students. I've had strong personal and professional relationships with many amazing colleagues who, as a rule, always felt that our schools and classrooms were safe refuges from the dangers of the larger world. When disruptive student behaviors occurred, which they did, there was always a sense that our administrators had our backs. If it became necessary to send a student to the office, we did so. We could do so. Alternatively, we could send a student to work for a short time in the classroom of a partner teacher. Today, unfortunately, even while disruptive behaviors have multiplied, we no longer have these options. When we raise these concerns, the response from district leadership is usually a vague description of systems we already have in place to respond to such behaviors. On paper, it all looks wonderful. Well-intentioned school administrators, counselors, and behavior specialists meeting regularly to plan out how to intervene. As I said, it all looks good on paper. All the while, we have many teachers who regularly document behavior issues in their classrooms, filling out referrals as needed, yet who rarely, if ever, receive follow-ups about what happened with those referrals or what measures were taken, if any. We've seen repeated threats made against teachers at all school sites from kindergarten on up. Teachers have been punched, kicked, or verbally threatened with violence on a regular basis. In reality, we are overburdened and simply do not have staffing to address the emotional needs and traumas that many of our students carry with them. Clearly, the systems we have in place are no longer working. Clearly, it's time to give educators not only a seat at the table, but a genuine voice in decision-making. It's time to collaborate with the people who know best, namely teachers and families, who have had the most detailed understanding of the challenges that today's students face. Even in the era of tight budgets, this district must prioritize the need to lower class sizes and hire, yes, hire, sufficient counselors and mental health professionals to respond adequately to the greatly heightened emotional needs of our students post-COVID. A law enforcement style approach, bringing uniformed police officers into our schools, would not solve these problems. In fact, it would make things worse. There are many in our population who are already traumatized by their experiences with uniformed authorities and the immigration system. Our schools, above all, need to be places of unconditional acceptance and nurture. As I said earlier, I'm proud to be an educator in Woodburn. The leadership of this district has a lot to be proud of as well. It's time, however, to plan for the future, not rest on our laurels. When it comes to the severe behaviors that are plaguing this district at an alarming rate, it's long past time to consult the professionals, and that is us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Yesenia Alonso.
Buenas tardes. Me llamo Yesenia Alonso, he vivido en Woodward por 29 años. Mis hijos se han graduado de Woodward High School. Quiero expresar mi profunda preocupación por la necesidad de asegurarse que la mesa directiva escolar escuche a la comunidad y continúe manteniendo pólizas y procesos que garanticen entornos acogedores, seguros e inclusivos y que apoyen a los estudiantes y familias para que tengan éxito y prosperen en el distrito. Es de suma importancia que se mantenga la inclusión de los derechos de los estudiantes LGBT sin tener que luchar para mantenerlo debido a las agendas personales de algunos miembros de la mesa directiva. La comunidad desea seguir participando y colaborando con la mesa directiva en estos procesos. Les recordamos que ustedes fueron elegidos para representar a la comunidad en completa. Por favor, consideren cuidadosamente el impacto que sus decisiones tienen en toda la comunidad escolar y trabajen para asegurar que todos los estudiantes se sientan seguros y apoyados y respetados en su entorno educativo. Gracias por su atención y compromiso hacia la excelencia educativa para todos nuestros estudiantes.
Gracias. Next, I'd like to invite Salvador Pantoja.
Hello, my name is Salvador Pantoja, and I'm the Executive Director of the Regional Health Equity Coalition for Marion and Polk Counties. As a former student of Ballard Middle School and Woodburn High School, I have a deep personal investment in the well-being of the Woodburn School District. Our organization is dedicated to finding sustainable long-term solutions to promote health equity, diversity, and inclusion within our communities. Recently, members of the Woodburn community have reached out to us with concerns about the current situation with the school district and the inappropriate conduct of some of the board members here, which include discriminatory behavior towards priority populations in the region, including people of color and people from the LGBTQ+ communities. In response, we would like to offer our support and partnership to the school board in addressing these issues. Our efforts focus on advocating for priority populations such as people of color, immigrants, refugees, farm workers, individuals and families with low income, people with disabilities, and LGBTQ+ individuals. Our work not only involves advocating for these communities, but also empowering them to advocate for themselves and become leaders within their own spaces. We strongly believe that by working together, we can create a more inclusive and equitable environment for all students, staff, and community members. Especially, we are prepared to offer the following forms of support. Number one, community engagement. We can assist with outreach and engagement efforts to ensure that all voices are heard and that the needs of our priority populations are addressed. Two, policy analysis. Our team can provide analysis of policies and practices to ensure that they are equitable and do not perpetuate systematic inequalities. Three, capacity building. We can afford training and technical assistance to empower community members to advocate for themselves and become leaders within their own spaces and communities. Four, advocacy. We can provide support in advocating for the needs and concerns of our community at a local, state, and national level. We firmly believe that our collaboration can create a more inclusive and equitable environment for all students of the Woodburn School District community. In addition, we are committed to working with the school district staff and administration to enhance their inclusivity and cultural awareness through the following means. Number one, training and workshops. Our organization can provide training sessions and workshops on topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion to promote awareness and create a more welcoming environment. Two, data analysis and reporting. We can assist in analyzing data related to the student outcomes, discipline, and other related factors to identify disparities and work towards solutions. We are dedicated to bringing about positive change within the Woodburn School District and are eager to engage in meaningful dialogue and action to support the well-being and success of all students and families. We look forward to collaborating with the school board and district officials in this important work. Thank you for taking the time to consider our offer.
Thank you. Kathy Custon.
Hello, I'm speaking as a 25-year veteran teacher in Woodburn and WEA Bargaining Chair and Grievance Committee Co-Chair. I last spoke to this body on November 14th when the school board excluded community, educators, and staff from participating democratically in the selection of a new superintendent. Then, in an abandonment of community survey results, you unilaterally appointed the current superintendent, citing the cost of conducting a national search process as justification for breaking your promise to this community. I called that action then undemocratic, autocratic, and oppressive. Now I'm back. I and we stand together tonight to state that we protest the appointment of a board member's relative as head of the Budget Committee and demand a budget process that is transparent and unbiased. 2, we oppose further cuts in educator and classified positions which have put our learning programs in peril. 3, we support increased investment in interventionists, counselors, and mental health positions at all levels. 4, we demand that the process of developing safety systems to prevent and respond to school threats include all stakeholders, families, educators, and staff, not just agreements made between district officials and community partners. We recognize that these are tough times for our schools and our students' needs are not being met by current staffing levels. Within the last week, written threats were received at both middle schools, resulting in all schools practicing evacuation and lockdown protocols. Within the last month here in Woodburn, we had an 11-year-old shoot another 11-year-old off campus. WEA filed a grievance to demand gang awareness and prevention training and enforcement of school board policy JFCE/JFCEA, which had up to that point been largely ignored by our safety director and this board. And throughout this year, Woodburn families, including our own Woodburn staff families, have been transferring their children out of our district and into other nearby districts due to bullying and violence. These problems reflect the desperation of the disenfranchised, the marginalized, and those living under extreme economic pressure. Long-term resolution of the impact of these problems on schools involves budget. It involves informed investment and the complex process of involving all stakeholders. Resolution will not come in decisions made unilaterally by a small body with a law enforcement bias. So I'll end with the same question I brought in November. Will you demonstrate democratic values, honoring and including diverse voices, especially those of marginalized families and staff? Or will you fortify a dubious new legacy for the district, one that justifies exclusion and top-down oppression? The paths are many that have brought us to Woodburn. One thing unites us, however, we know what oppression is and what it feels like. And we know that oppression begins with the rationale to justify excluding other voices, including the voices of dissenters within your own board. Thank you.
Leslie Munoz.
Good evening, school board members. Woodburn School District must adopt and enforce a clear discipline policy that our students, parents, teachers, and administrators know about and understand. My name is Leslie Munoz, and I'm a parent in this community and have seen 2 sons graduate from Woodburn schools. I currently have a son at Woodburn High School and a daughter at French Prairie. My children are my life. Everything I do for them. I know many parents in this community feel the same way. I also know that all of you came into this work because of your love for education, our students, and our community. Because of this, I urge you to take the urgent action regarding safety in our schools. It has been hard to deal with the issues arising lately from a lack of discipline structures within our schools. Prior to coming to this meeting tonight and over the last couple of weeks, I have spoken to students, parents, and teachers about their understanding of the discipline policies at Woodburn School District. What is clear to me is that there is no clear understanding of those. We need a clear, consistent policy we all know and can follow. If our community works together, we can achieve our goal of a safe school for our students district-wide. Our community needs your leadership, expertise, voice, and critical thinking skills to overcome this challenging time. Last week alone, French Prairie went into lockdown twice. How am I supposed to look my daughter in the eye and assure her that she is safe? I don't know if she's safe. Is she? As parents, we would be failing our children by not urging you as elected officials to keep them safe. As district representatives, you're failing them. We elected you to make decisions that will keep our children safe. We need a clear path forward with discipline policies that will address our unsafe school conditions without having to make the difficult decision that sending our children to school might land them in a youth correctional facility. We aren't missing law enforcement, as our children aren't criminals. We're lacking clear disciplinary policies, guidance, and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Guevara.
Buenas tardes, miembros de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de Woodburn. Mi nombre es María Erika Guevara. Creí que no me iba a volver a sentar aquí frente a ustedes. Es martes 12 de marzo del 2024. Hace casi un año estuve en la misma situación, ¿verdad? Por otras cosas, pero que incumben a lo mismo. Estoy aquí por varias razones que como padre de familia me preocupan, comenzando con el alza de pandillas en las escuelas de Woodburn, primaria, secundaria y preparatoria. Mucho le llaman moda, entre ellos padres de familia, lastimosamente, ¿verdad? Cuando la realidad que estamos viviendo es otra. Entiendo que hay un código de vestimenta. Sin embargo, con muy poca información, no específica, porque no la especifica. Y si no tenemos ese código bien especificado, cuál es la vestimenta correcta y cuál es aceptable en la escuela y cuál no, no podemos decirle a nuestros hijos ni llamarles la atención, porque sería muy contradictorio. Entonces, en ese aspecto yo sí me refiero a que nosotros como padres de familia exigimos que cuando se hagan esas pólizas, nosotros queremos ser parte de ellas. No queremos que decidan por nosotros. Quiero ser parte de ellas. Esta información fue revisada y aprobada, pero ¿por quiénes? Yo quiero saber por quiénes. Yo quiero ser parte de esas decisiones, porque no piden opinión a los padres. Para mí como padre de familia me preocupa porque esto está influyendo en el comportamiento que los niños y jóvenes están teniendo con los maestros. Esto terminará teniendo un impacto muy alto en el área académica de cada niño. Y alto me refiero que no van a aprender más, sino alto en que ellos van a decidir y van a hacer cosas que no están bien, ¿verdad? Eso es muy preocupante, porque su entender aún no está capacitado para saber qué son cosas buenas y qué son malas. ¿Por qué? Porque no está viendo consecuencias. No hay consecuencias, los niños están haciendo lo que les da la gana, desde vestimenta hasta comportamiento con los maestros y adultos que están afuera, ¿verdad? Desde cruzándose la calle, desde entrar a la hora que ellos quieren a la escuela. Entonces no está viendo consecuencias. Como padre de familia no quiero policías en las escuelas, a menos de que sea para información de seguridad para los niños. Quiero que las reglas que tenemos en el manual del distrito las pongan en práctica y se hagan cumplir. Sabemos que cualquier amenaza debe ser tomada en cuenta. Nada es burla. Para mí no es burla. A mí no me gustó que mi hijo estuviera ahí por casi 4 horas. Para nada. No me sentí segura y sabía que no podía ir a la escuela. Pero estoy de acuerdo que se sancionen a los que lo hacen para que el mensaje que se dé de que habrá consecuencias sea claro y que los niños y jóvenes lo piensen más antes de actuar, hacer, escribir. No seamos parte de la comunidad que muchos han adoptado. Necesitamos unirnos como padres, como comunidad, para apoyar a aquellos padres que quieren información y no la tienen a su alcance.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Erika, solo. Erika. Ay, ay, Erika. Solo quiero comentar lo que se entrega, se puede leer solamente. Para la siguiente vez, por favor. Ruben Vázquez.
My name is Ruben Vasquez, and I'm just a concerned parent. We currently have issues with the lack of support for children on IEP, along with a quick follow-up to arising problems. This is very concerning when we have to worry about the safety of our children. We also have issues with providing a safe learning environment when our students are mocked and bullied for asking questions or just wanting to participate in a learning session. The teachers are even getting harassed, and they're not even provided with support. We also have a lack of communication regarding this past lockdown we had last week, as we haven't heard what the threat was about. What is being done to address these concerns?
Thank you. Noah Romero.
My name is Noah Romero, and I'm a freshman at the high school. Regarding the discussion on dress code today, I'd like to urge the board to ensure equal expectations for both boys and girls. It is not fair or appropriate to place additional requirements on girls, and I want to make sure that our school continues to be a place free from discrimination. It is not a girl's responsibility to make sure boys aren't distracted by clothing. It is our job as boys to act appropriately and stay focused at school. Too often girls are blamed for boys' bad behavior. And I would not want us to become a district that shames girls for expressing themselves within reasonable limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Yesenia Zazueta.
Good evening. My name is Yesenia Zazueta, and I attended Woodburn School District from kindergarten to graduating from Woodburn High School. I'm here because I'm very concerned about how the kids are dressing and how it relates to behaviors at school among peers and spilling into our community. I have 3 children that attend Woodburn schools. My oldest is a freshman, and I have 2 younger children who are in elementary and one heading into middle school in this fall. I started to notice a shift in dress code a couple years ago. My oldest was attending Valor Middle School at the time, where I saw thin strap camisoles and crop top shirts or big baggy clothing. Recently, I saw a student wearing just a white sports bra under an unzipped sweater at the high school. And when picking up my younger kids for middle school age, boys were running from Valor saying someone was going to call the cops as they attempted to hold their pants up in an effort to keep them from falling off. My son is in kindergarten and was sad one day telling me some of the kids at school were saying he had fake Nike shoes. My thought was, how is this happening already in kindergarten? We've never talked about brand names at home. We are fortunate enough to have either purchased or been gifted clothing and shoes with brand names, but not all children have that privilege. And I wonder how many are being bullied or made fun of for what they're wearing. I work in the community with a lot of school-age children. What I've seen are kids wearing clothes reminiscent of 90s gangs, especially those in middle school. Large white or black shirts, sagging pants, jewelry in old English script. Girls are even starting to do their makeup in this style. Unfortunately, this has been accompanied with weapons at school and a shooting at a convenience store on 99E. Inter-district school rivalry between the middle schools is getting out of hand as well, with students affiliating each school as a Sur or Norte school. I have spoken with numerous parents and students who have shared their stories with me. Most of these kids end up transferring out of Woodburn or choosing to go online due to bullying or gang-affiliated activities. I recently sat down and had a conversation with one of the vice principals at Woodburn High School. We touched on this subject and referenced our current student handbook and the lack of specifics around what is acceptable clothing. When I attended school here, there were very clear and structured rules and guidelines, and all were enforced. I'm asking the community, parents, family members, and faculty to come up with a plan. There has been a huge surge in gang-related violence in our community and surrounding areas, and schools should be a safe space where students are united, a united community. I believe it all starts at home and in a kid's day-to-day environment. We should be teaching them to dress presentable, as this helps with interviewing with colleges or for jobs. I understand that not everyone has the same access to nice clothing, so if this means having an equal playing field and opening the conversation to school uniforms, let's have that conversation. We just need to act. This needs to change. Our kids are worth that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your public comment this evening. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is reports. And the first item is board reports, and this is an opportunity for board members to share how we are moving the district forward.
So we recently attended Washington Elementary School with Juan Larios as a site visit. And we also have plans to participate in the STEM festival that's taking place tomorrow at Ballard and Heritage Elementary School.
As Rosie stated, I'm excited to attend the STEM night tomorrow night at Valor. I've been there before, but it's just great to see how the kids are implementing their ideas and whatnot in regards to their work. So I'm excited about that. Also attended basketball games as of late, supporting our team because it's exciting as far as they got. We're dang proud of those boys. So just, engaging with the community members, the teachers and whatnot, in that kind of atmosphere is always uplifting, and hearing positive comments, regarding the team, the coaches and the teachers all at the same time in a community event is always a huge plus.
I also attended the site visits at Washington Elementary, along with attending a couple of the boys' basketball team. And tomorrow we will be having a table at the STEM Festival. So if you come and attend, feel free to stop by our table. We will be there. If you don't have any other discussion around that, we can move along. Thank you. Second item is operation reports. From the business office, this will be an audit report. And it will be presented by Director Sarah Bishop. There you are.
Good evening, everyone. You have in your board packet the 22-23 audit report. Good, the volume. Okay, thank you. So we're required for, with the Student Success Act, to present this annually to the board. We've always done it before the Student Success Act as well. But I just wanted to point that out. One thing about our audit report, and it was funny, I was just talking to our auditors today about this as they're looking at our current year's transactions to gear up for our next audit report. The audit report is really a tool for bankers, people who loan us money, investors. Most of the audit report is not useful for public consumption, if you may, but I will point out some areas that are great to focus on and are awesome for review for everyone. So my recommendation is we're going to skip the first half of the audit report and jump to page numbered 9. Correct, yep. Thank you, Jenny. This is really the best report when you're looking at the district from a financial standpoint. This outlines the individual funds that we have. When you're looking at the prior pages of the report, there's a lot of adjustments that are made to bring it up to a reporting component that, for example, our bond agencies use. So honestly, those pages are not super helpful for the general public. But pages 9 and on are. This summarizes in not a ton of detail our annual position for revenues and expenditures, all rolled up into just a few subcategories. So for example, in the general fund, local sources would be things like our property taxes, rental fees for the gym spaces to outside organizations, for example. State sources is our state school fund. Instruction in the expenditure category is very broad. It is anything that's charged to a 1,000 function. So when you're looking at your typical board report that I give you, it's all those functions in the first part of the expenditures that start with a 1. But again, for the purposes of the audit, they're all rolled up into one category. And so again, this is broken down in just a few categories: general fund, special revenue, which encompasses all of our special revenue funds. So that would be things like Title 1A, Title 1C, the student investment account, things like the SMILE grant, and so on. The debt service funds is what pays for our debt service, our general obligation bond. Facilities and construction is our old bond account that has closed during this audit, as well as things like our construction excise tax and our reserve funds. And then other governmental funds encompasses our, in this case, the nutrition services and construction excise tax separately. So I would encourage you to review that sheet. The other ones are not very useful, to be quite frank. I would also bring your attention to the notes section of the audit. This starts on page numbered 13 of the audit report. This has some great detailed information in narrative format just about the general function of the district's finances, and can give you a little more detail and clarity about what some of the numbers are in the first sheets of the audit report. So I also recommend reading through this. It talks about the different forms of reporting, our measurement and basis of accounting. It goes into a little more detail there. What qualifies for capital assets, for example. It all goes into detail in this area. What constitutes a cash and cash equivalent versus an investment, and so on. Are there any questions?
I do. I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I know you didn't go over page 20, but I have questions regarding expenditures that include special revenue fund, enterprise and community services, as well as food service fund, enterprise and community services. It looks like it overspent at a little over $1 million.
We did. We got 2 additional grants to both of those funds that came in that we had to expend within that year. So that resulted in the over expenditures there.
So those grants paid for
Yes.
that amount? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
This is a lot of information to to digest, and it's not in a very consumable format. So So when we do present our budget in April, you will see these expenditures also rolled up into the budget. So that's a great time when we go into more detail to really dig into the numbers. Again, this is a very high-level overview that is truthfully not the most useful for everyday consumers of financial information, but the budget will have all of the line item detail. Please do.
Rosie, do you have a question?
I don't have any questions. I'd have to do a little bit more thorough reading.
Totally understandable.
It looks like those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you,
you all
Sarah.
for your time.
Moving on to our next update is the Woodburn School District City of Woodburn Youth Engagement Update.
So coming to the front of the boardroom.
We cannot ask questions at this time.
I want to welcome up Casey Woolley, Zaraya Oder, and Jesse Cuomo to share a little bit about the partnership and the work that's being done to proactively respond to some of the needs of our students and our youth in our community. So I'm excited to share this work, and I think we'll be all eager to hear about some of this work that's happening as we work to partner with our community.
Hold on a second. Test. Yeah? Yeah? All right. Members of the board, Superintendent Larios, it's with pleasure I'm up here with, as you mentioned, Jesse and Zaraya from the city. They invited us to participate in a youth outreach kind of committee, which had members from faith-based different organizations around the community, county, had school district employees, classified, licensed, and administrators. And we're going to have Jesse and Zaraya start off with kind of how the committee was formed, what they did, and some of the outcomes and deliverables.
Oh, perfect. Let's use this. All right. Thank you this evening. I'm Jesse Cuomo, Community Services Director for the City of Woodburn. So I'm really pleased to be here tonight and talk about the work we've done up to this point. So back in May of 2023, we were able to establish a committee to kind of help navigate and educate ourselves on, some youth education components and things, and how we could all partner as a community and really come together with some supports and things like that. And that meeting was, as Casey mentioned, was comprised of, Marion County staff. It was also several school district staff, as well as nonprofits, faith-based community, and several other of our community partners were involved in this committee. And following several meetings and kind of getting a lay of the land, the city decided to invest some of our ARPA funding into creating a position, which turned into Zaraya. She's our community education and outreach coordinator, to help facilitate not only education and outreach throughout the city when it comes to her current initiatives with youth and families, but also, really partner with the school district. You have fantastic staff throughout the school district, and being able to provide support from the city side to help navigate and provide additional training and education supports. And so after several meetings with this group, we kind of came up with some core goals after hearing everyone's kind of input and things, and they all accepted or voted on a core 4 goals, and I will transition that to Zaraya to speak on these goals and how we're addressing them at this time. And we just look forward to continue to partner, and we're happy to answer any questions at the end. But I'll hand it over to Zaraya now to talk about kind of the direction of those goals, how we're going, and then follow up with any other questions. So thank you.
Good evening, board and superintendent. My name is Zaraya Uder, and I am the Community Outreach and Education Coordinator for the City of Woodburn. I was brought on to this position a few months ago, back in November. In the beginning, I was able to meet with the Youth Intervention Committee, which was established around last May, as Jesse mentioned. With that committee, as a collective group, we developed some goals and kind of a 2 to 3 year action plan as far as what are we going to do and to better the community and with the things that are going on. So as far as those goals, we are talking about expansion of programs. We are currently working with a e-gaming organization called Satellite Gaming, which already has a contract with Salem Kaiser School District. So we will be starting that this spring into the summer and into next school year, which will provide programming at both middle schools and hopefully into the high school for up to 60 youth. And it'll be completely free, available on site for youth to attend directly after school. We also are partnering with the Woodburn School District and Chemeketa to provide a mentorship program where college students at Chemeketa are able to receive elective credit and high school kids. So high school kids and Chemeketa students will be able to receive credit to provide mentorship to our middle school youth. And in that, they will also gain some soft skills, which will help them later on in their career and post grad. Lastly, we also have started a educational component for families, guardians, community members called It Takes a Village, Connecting Generations. So we are working with various partners such as Safety Compass, Liberty House, Marion County Juvenile Department, and lots more to come, covering different topics such as internet safety for youth, awareness around human trafficking, safe gun storage, QPR, suicide prevention, and as I said, much more will be coming in the future.
So specifically, April 3rd and April 16th. April 3rd will be the suicide prevention, and April 16th is secure gun storage. And we'll be partnering to try to get more people at those events at the school. So we're going to host them at our school and hopefully get more people to attend those meetings. We're then going to shift a little bit, and we actually had meetings, was it yesterday and today? We had 2 meetings about 2 more initiatives that we're going to push out. And one is specifically around high at-risk behaviors and gang education, support, and training, both for staff and family members. We went with Marion County today, and we're looking at a series going April, May, and June. April would be specifically around high-risk youth behaviors, gang prevention, education, and tips. We're looking at May, looking around drug and alcohol, same kind of concepts we can give. And these will be trainings that we'll offer to staff and then in the evenings to families. And then we will also extend it to other communities. The thinking being that if we train our staff, we train our community, we push out through faith-based, we push out through all these other areas, then as a community, everybody will be speaking the same language and supporting kids in a very similar way. We're then looking in June at trying to offer a parent-specific one around how to best, supervise or guide your student during the summer when sometimes often our kids are left to supervise themselves. So what are some ways that we can give parents tips, tricks, resources, opportunities, activities, so we can help parents navigate the summer months? And then we're looking as we roll into next year, having trainings that are ongoing both in August and in January, again, with Marion County around juvenile trends that we're seeing with staff, and then having the same trainings again with parents, so everybody is speaking that same language moving forward. The other activity that we met with on Monday with the city, with the Woodburn PD superintendent, was a teen peer court. And this was a kind of it's a similar one. I believe they have in Kaiser. I believe they have it in Salem. And essentially, it's for students who, both within the school setting or in the communities, is this cutting in and out? No, is it just my ears? Sorry, I'm getting old. It could be in the school, but also in the community for students who are first-time offenders. So they don't have to go for the juvenile process. Instead, they would go through this teen peer court where they would be, it's a same kind of thing, but it's run by non-law enforcement. Is essentially run, they have a judge, somebody with legal background who oversees it as the judge. They have a jury of their peers. They present their case. there are sanctions, and then if they go through the recommendations and they give examples like it could be community service, it could be an essay, it could be giving back to your community in some capacity. At college, it could be taking classes. Then once you meet all those sanctions, it's expunged off your record and it doesn't follow you. So we're trying to give opportunities for kids who've made a bad choice, give them an experience and an opportunity so it doesn't follow them the rest of their lives.
Just a quick question. So this peer court, what cases are these based on? Are these based on school behaviors or what specifically?
No, so it'd be entry level crime. So it'd be like tagging, things like that. Or, you know, harassment based entry level types of items that are coming in. It wouldn't anything extreme. So they still would actually go to Marion County first, and then Marion County would make the referral to the teen court program. So they kind of take and filter the severity of the crime and then do the referral to the teen court.
School and community.
Yeah, so exactly.
So really, sorry. Really, we wanted to have that support both within the school and the community. And so we're going to be partnering with that. So if those types of behaviors happen in the school or in the community, be it weekend, summer, they would still have that opportunity. So you're probably more of the expert than any of that.
Thank you. So peer court is for ages 12 to 17, and it is for first-time nonviolent offenders. So those are things like harassment, theft, maybe MIPs, things like that. And then the peers are also other youth who have gone through that same court system. So each youth is required to do one jury duty. So that way they are able to sit in, learn about other cases, learn about laws that they might not be aware of. A lot of people or a lot of youth like to go on the train tracks. A lot of people don't know that that's illegal. You can get a charge for going on the train tracks, which we saw a lot in Salem. So it's a good opportunity for them to learn and to not recommit that same offense or other offenses. Salem Teen Court currently has an 86% rate of non-repeating offenses, which is really great. So again, it's for ages 12 to 17, first time nonviolent offenses. And then once they complete that program, within 6 months, they are completely expunged. It's like Salem Teen Court never saw them, Marion County never saw them, nothing ever happened.
So is this to kind of divert up and coming potentials? Whereas, because obviously we have issues in the community where you already have people they've set their ways. But so this is just to kind of avoid the up and coming potential.
This would be used as another intervention tactic, right? It would catch the kids on the front end. It gives them an opportunity to, hey, I did make a poor decision, and I can right this, and it's not going to be a permanent mark, right? And I think youth and children need that opportunity. And so the nice thing about this program as well is that there's a requirement for the parent to be involved in this process as well. There's multiple steps along that, and so the parent actually has to be a part of the process, or they will get sent back to Marion County, or parent or guardian, a designated guardian, because all life situations are different. But they would actually get sent back to Marion County and then put through the system in that way. But they do give the opportunity, and it really kind of helps hold sometimes it educates the parent. Sometimes the parent doesn't even know what is happening, right? Because they're so busy just kind of living their lives and making life work. And so sometimes it's this enlightening thing when they show up for the first time and say, whoa, what happened? Like, what's going on? And so bringing the parent along with the youth along on this journey to expunge it and have them kind of be able to build themselves back up is the goal of this program.
So I heard you say earlier, there's a referral system. So who submits that referral? Is that coming from the school?
So that comes from Marion County Juvenile Department specifically.
Is there a limit on the threshold of what, because I know you gave examples, it could be tagging, it could be whatever. What's the threshold? I mean, because obviously some of those are lower end misdemeanors. What is the threshold? C misdemeanor, B misdemeanor, A misdemeanor? I mean, just to get an idea.
I know, as Zariah said, it's low nonviolent crimes, but I don't know the exact level of that off the top of my head.
I also heard you mention Salem Kaiser. has this program? Are there other school districts that offer this program?
It's not it's actually the city of Salem
Okay,
and
the
it's
Salem.
actually the Salem Boys and Girls Club that runs that program for the county,
Okay.
or for Salem specifically, the city of Salem, and then the city of Kaiser runs its own program separately from that as
Got it.
well.
So can you,
Sorry.
can you speak to the effectiveness of that? Do you have data to show?
Yeah,
how
so
effective-
as Zariah said, there's about an 86% success rate of non-repeat offenders through the program. So from start to finish, it takes about 9 to 10 months to go through the program between, your first meeting to when you actually get it expunged from your record. And you also have to do your different volunteer work and things. And this is just one component of, the mini TRIDA processes we're putting in place after some, in-depth community conversations, the mentorship piece and a lot of other components, education, all these other things. And so we're just looking at this as an additional resource to kind of help along that continuum and get folks back on the right track.
And so for kiddos who don't complete the program, what is the option for them?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
For students who don't complete the program?
Oh, if they don't complete the program, then they would go back to Marion County Juvenile Department and go through that process.
And is there any idea of as to what you said 86%, what makes it successful that you know of?
But, I can't speak for the actual Boys and Girls who runs it, but I think and actually Zara probably could, but I feel it's, it's the direct, having the parent involved in the front end as well, in the process, as well as, having options in which to be educated on what your offense was and kind of this facilitator that is helping them along the way through the process, ownership of it and everything else. And if there's anything more you can speak to about that program too.
And I think the sanctions that are given also help with that as well, because it's going to be based on what your charge is and what your peers think is right. They're not just going to give you 40 hours of community service and call it a day. Depending on what you did, it might be, for example, Salem Teen Court, they have various activities such as a college and industry tour through the Boys and Girls Club. If a youth doesn't know what they want to do post high school, those opportunities allow them to get a new experience and maybe start thinking, okay, what do I want to do post graduation? Am I going to go straight into the workforce? Do I want to go into the trades? Do I want to go to a four-year university? Am I going to go to Chemeketa? Or other things, around empathy and putting themselves in a victim's shoes. So maybe if the charge was theft, all right, then I'm going to do this empathy activity to understand what it would feel like if my laptop got stolen from me. Things like that. So the sanctions are very catered specifically to the types of cases that the teen court will most likely see.
And Casey had mentioned earlier about the two initiatives, and you talked about June, parents' education and whatnot. Does that tie in with this specifically, and when is this plan to be rolled out?
No, those are two separate things. One is just trying to build, with Zariah, we're trying to build a partnership and a collaboration with outside resources, bringing them both to staff and community members together. And that's what we're speaking of April, May, June, then again in August, and then more than likely ongoing throughout July. But those are just the ones that we spoke about on Monday with Marion County as far as planning those, getting those to staff and getting those to communities. The peer court yesterday was our first conversation with it. But being the school board, it's something we wanted to present. That way we're kind of noodling on it. And again, the key is to give kids experiences and give them opportunities to rectify the choices that they made before it becomes a barrier to what their future could be. And that's really what peer court is giving them an avenue and helping them and their parents navigate this, and then giving them an experience to go, well, if you want to get here, let's do these things, get this expunged off your record so that you still have that wide open as a possibility.
So students are in this peer court, are the school and the counselors, the teachers aware of it or no?
No, the peer court operates on its own. We will partner with them in helping set it up, helping run it, but it operates as its own entity. So it has its own person that operates as a judge, which is somebody with legal background. It has its own person that operates as a bailiff, which help oversees it. It has its own person that operates all the cases, all the jackets, what they call it, helps the parents, connects with the parents, helps everybody navigate that system. So it's its own system we would just partner in helping support it and develop it and helping our families understand it. So it will be a true partnership with the city to do this. And
So the school won't be aware if any of their own students are involved in it?
yeah, we will be well aware. But we don't run the peer court.
Not be operated.
It would be operated by Woodburn School District. Yes.
And is this something that we'd be able to receive follow-up on with data? Because we're so invested in data. you know,
Absolutely.
see the efficacy of it, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. If it's decided and that's something that we're moving forward with, then of course we would bring once that system's set up and the people are selected, we bring them in and go through that entire process. Again, it was in listening to, a community and the board about trying to provide experiences and opportunities for kids to help them. We just feel like it's a really good opportunity to help educate our students and our families to help them navigate it.
Yeah, I think this ties in very nicely with, like I said, the continuum, right? We're talking about education, doing a lot of preventative things, right? You have your pieces with your prevention, right? We're doing a lot in the prevention space, and then the intervention space, right? Like, hey, you did slip up and that is okay. Like, you are going to make mistakes. And, if it's at a certain level, those are things that can be done if you check the right boxes to do the right thing. So that kind of being in that space as well. And then before they get to that whole kind of suppression piece where it's like, hey, this is permanently on your record, it's permanently going to affect you, things like that. So really trying to kind of get upstream and provide supports for families as well as the youth in our community. And honestly, I can't say enough about your staff and everyone that we've been working with. They've been so many meetings with us to make sure we're establishing, going the right direction. So just kudos to your staff that you all have. I really greatly do appreciate it.
And how does it, I mean, because obviously with the team program, I guess it's a discussion with Woodburn Police and whatnot, because if there's going to be this program that's implemented that would, to help curb potential issues, would that increase potential targeting just because of the fact, well, now we have peer court. Okay, normally something that's a low misdemeanor. Well, now we have peer court. Does that make sense?
No, well, it makes sense, but I don't see that being the case. What the charge is, it will be what the charge is, and they just are going through a different referral process. So they actually have an opportunity to get it expunged in a much easier process. Or actually, it's a lengthy process, but if they do the right things, they can get it expunged, right? So what the charge is, out in the field would still be what that is. I don't think there's going to be, I couldn't see that being a case, really, because it doesn't really even involve the PD. The PD would do the citation, and then it goes through Marion County and all these other filters, and then they're getting referred to that peer court. So, yeah.
One question I did ask was, this isn't a WPD specific thing, because I asked this question to say, what if one of our kiddos gets in trouble with the county or gets in trouble with the state? If it still meets that criteria and they live here within the borders of our identified peer court, they would have an opportunity to go through this.
So if they, as Casey said, if they committed a crime of some kind outside in the Salem area or somewhere else in a different community and it falls within that criteria, they still could be a part of this teen court because this is where they reside. So, any additional questions?
Yes. Do you have?
I was just gonna say, just keep us updated on the process.
No,
That'd be
absolutely.
great.
And again, I said it already, but thank you so much to everyone and all the effort put in by Superintendent Larios and Casey and everyone else. And it's just been a real pleasure to have that partnership. I think the depth of our partnership is deeper than it's ever been between the city and the district. And I'm just truly appreciative of that. So thank you.
So for the community to be aware, this information is available on the city police website, right?
No, it wouldn't be with the peer court thing. Like Casey said, we just had our meeting yesterday. But when it comes to these other like education opportunities, those are being posted online. They're on the city website as well as our social media channels. We're partnering with the district on a lot of these things. So the education pieces, the mentorship program is still kind of being built, and those other education opportunities, working with Marion County Juvenile Department for school staff and others, are getting built as we speak. So hopefully, with the great work of Zariah, we're able to kind of strengthen and bolster the great work you all here are doing at the district and all the teachers are doing within the district, and just come alongside and give a little bit of breathing room to you all, and help facilitate some of these things and help with bring together some of these partnerships to bring education and other opportunities to everyone.
I have some questions around the presentations or workshops or training courses. Can you tell me more about that? I mean, currently, I just attended one last week. And so I'm just curious how what we are currently offering different from what is being proposed here.
So we are providing those Liberty House trainings that are already in the Woodburn schools. We were providing them inside of the Woodburn Public Library. So maybe members of the community who don't have a tie to a school can attend those as well. They're completely free. On top of that, we already have QPR, which is a suicide prevention course, which will be at the high school. And then we have the Be Smart Safe Gun Storage, which is teaching folks how to securely store their firearms and keep children safe. So that also just got moved over to the high school. And then we just had a human trafficking awareness training, which was led by Safety Compass, who is here in town. They led that at the Woodburn Public Library. So it's various different topics. We're not just focusing on like internet safety. We're trying to do a overcompass of different topics. We might, bring in some more health focused things, whether that's around diabetes or whatever it might be. We're trying to just bring in a holistic education piece that's not only going to focus on gang prevention and intervention, or maybe drug and alcohol use. We want to support our community in different measures and different ways. So that's why we're bringing in various topics to provide those opportunities for folks.
Okay. And of the presentations or the workshops presented at the library, what was the attendance like? Because we can provide workshops and trainings, but then the other component is our parents or people from our community attending.
Yeah. So for the first workshop, we had 0 attendance. So we did have to cancel that first one. And then for the second workshop, we had 7 community members, which did include 4 youth. So youth are also encouraged to attend these workshops and trainings. It's not just for adults. The same education and opportunities that we're providing adults, we want to be transparent with their youth. And that also creates discussion and conversation for guardians and parents to have with their youth and help them build those relationships.
And that's one of the reasons why Zariah reached out and asked, like, can we try doing these at the school? Because we tend to get a higher rate of our families who feel comfortable coming to our school. So she asked, and we moved some things around, shifted some times, and we'll begin pushing those out and attempt to get that out to more people.
And I think a component of this as well, meeting folks where they're at, but also providing, it is a series. So we're also looking at the possibility of providing different incentives and things. And as Zariah said, it's not just kind of geared in one area, it's about holistic education for supports for the families. If a family is in a desperate situation, it can be of multiple factors. And so if we can just provide different education opportunities to our families and our youth, whatever that is, there might be something that meets that need for that family and helps them in some way. And so prevents, allows them to have a skill that maybe that helps them put food on their table or whatever the other things are. So yeah, it's really, we're looking at the best opportunities. We do provide these kind of announcements on our biweekly radio program, as well as other platforms, and obviously working with the communications and stuff that the school district does is very helpful. But again, I think meeting folks where they're at is gonna be very helpful. And then also, providing some minor incentives so people feel like, hey, if I put in the time, because it is a lot task of families to do. And so if we can put in these minor incentives where they can, have something a little carrot at the end of the tunnel, I think we're happy to do that as well.
Thank you. And will these presentations be offered in other languages?
Yes.
Yeah, so right now they're being offered in English and Spanish. If the presenter cannot present it in Spanish, then we're offering an interpreting service.
What about for our Russian families?
if we do receive a request for that ahead of time, that is something we can do. We would just need to be able to get the interpreter on site when that happens. So we do have the ability to do that if there is a request, and we're happy to do so.
Thank you. You mentioned data collection. Can you tell me more about what that would look like? It's your first bullet under first steps.
Yeah, I think you were referring to. Yeah. I think that what we were referring to, this was part of one of the first meetings we had as the youth committee that was actually asking kids, what is it that can get you to stay involved? What kind of activity? And that's why we landed on satellite gaming, and we're talking about some kind of artistic, because we already offer sports. We have Parks and Rec. We have this, we're trying to diversify. So Zariah is going to push something out to students to say, what kind of activities is it that you would really like to participate? How can we keep you engaged after school here under supervision? And one of the pieces with the mentorship when I was meeting with Chemeketa is with that group of people, they will actually come to our middle schools and help kind of interact with kids during these activities so they can have an authentic experience with the kids rather than trying to just show up after school someday and sit down and say, hey, how you doing? They're actually engaged in the gaming, they're engaged in the art, they're engaged in something with kind of a shared experience with them so they can have an authentic relationship in the mentorship process.
So I am familiar with the mentorship program that existed some years ago. And so can you tell me more about, I mean, here it says about 20 students who can participate. What is the startup for that?
So it's just starting to develop. I met with Chemeketa, Elias a while ago. And so they're looking at offering, I believe it to 20 kiddos start, and 10 of them will be high school students. 10 of them would be Chemeketa students with one professor, just to try to get it off the ground to see what we can do. So that's what we're looking at right now. And then the details haven't all been worked out with the curriculum, but they were looking at, well, if we have that many kids and each kid spends 2 days a week at one of the middle schools, we can cover these events. Does that answer your question?
And when would this program start?
Say what? Go ahead. We was trying to do it for spring break, but if we can't pull that after spring, for spring term, if we can't pull that, it would be the fall term.
And so then for spring, what would be the first step?
The first step is get it posted, get it going, get kids recruited to it. That's the first step. Because, we're trying to make it also dual credit for our kiddos so they can get college credit while they do it.
The mentorship program.
What?
You're speaking about the mentorship program?
Yes, yes.
Is that what your question was?
So it would be an evening class, so it wouldn't compete with what they're doing. When I was talking with Chemeketa, they want to offer it kind of an evening class. And then I believe he was looking at doing it a Friday evening. And then that would leave Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where we can have access to kids coming to school and doing things. And then kids wouldn't have to sacrifice a class at their high school schedule. They wouldn't have to, so on and so forth. It creates more flexibility for kids to be able to get access to it. There was a concern that if we ran it during the day, then it could be problematic for kids to get there. So they were trying to increase access.
And so what kind of credits would they receive?
I don't know that yet. I'm assuming it would be elective.
Okay.
And it's not going to be available during the summer?
No, I don't believe so.
So what's the plan for summer? What's the plan for summer?
Yeah. Ongoing activities. No, exactly. No, yeah, we have brought into this conversation as well, like Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA and other programs that are available during the summer to help support. So to really trying to help bolster their programs, get kids engaged in theirs, helping ensure that they're getting in front of the youth prior to summer is key, as well as really highlighting some of the programs that are available in our community. So whether it's highlighting some of the interests, whether it's youth soccer, things like that, working with the Woodburn Football Club or the other interests. And then having other activities throughout the summer that are engaging, whether that's maybe a continuation of the satellite gaming, if that is available and we're able to do that, or other interests. And so we're always looking for opportunities within the city to engage kids and youth into our events and different things, but really trying to partner with those that are offering those summer programs and trying to help bolster them and really help get that education out to the parents so they know what's available. Because at times it's, you know, you don't even know what's available and you're like, oh, that is, I can refer my kid. You know, currently the Boys and Girls Club are operating a teen center out of Selmar Park. And so to help bolster that program throughout the summer, they do a lot of college tours and a lot of fun, awesome things throughout the summer. And so getting those folks in front of parents and youth is going to be key to having some success throughout the summer.
So we have about over 5,000 students. And so these programs that you're mentioning and community partnerships over the summer, how many students do they serve?
So it really depends on the program. The Boys and Girls Club, you know, ranges, and again, it's focused on teens, that site. They serve at that site probably about 120, 125 youth in total, probably a little bit more than that. And so that ranges, depends on availability. You know, we're not going to be able to reach all kids. All kids aren't going to be interested in every program that's offered. But if we can provide things that are of interest of those youth that have kind of time and idle time, I think that's where we want to focus our efforts, is really supporting those families that need those supports, that are really tied up in, again, just making ends meet, and then finding opportunities through partners that already have established programs and helping them bolster them.
And given that most kids, based on research, kind of get in trouble during after school hours, what will be offered like
So-
after school evening?
Again, you know, you obviously have good programs for the throughout the school district during the school year, and then some programs obviously after during the summer. But we also, for the Boys and Girls Club, they do operate from 3 to 6 out of the site. So hopefully that covers that basis, as well as most of the other additional programming is in evening time post school. So summer programming is always different. You know, there's very few programs that are all day long that are provided, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's summer is a different animal in its own right, for sure.
I guess that was I kind of went with the question I had in regards to hours, especially the summer.
Mhm.
I mean, because I know like the neighborhood I live in the summer, 11:30 at night, 12 midnight, you hear
Yep.
kids running around, you hear the slamming of rocks on the stop signs, kids, you know, so and you said it was 3 to 6?
That's during the
hours?
school year, yeah.
Okay.
And during the summer, their hours, I don't know them off the top of my head, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I can't really speak, you know, to those after hour things. I think that is, you know, something that is to each family and how they kind of handle that situation.
So just hopefully building rapport, kind of building relationships with the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Having those positive interventions, and, you know, hopefully one day we're actually able to build a community center as well around the existing aquatic center that will provide some of those opportunities, you know, gym space and different things into the evenings. So provide a positive outlet. I think that's another thing from a city perspective, we're really hoping comes in the next few years, is the ability to build that community center, because I think it will be an asset not only for, you know, young families and seniors, but really the teen population. It is, as I've even heard people tonight say, like the teens tend to lack a space to be, right? And so if you can provide a gym space when the weather's poor, different things like that are places where, again, there's positive influence or positive adult influences, whether they have a true connection or not, is kind of where we hope that central hub and expansion on the aquatic center assists that.
So I just want to thank the team and the work that's being done to create this like multi-pronged approach to be able to take some preventative measures and put them into place, recognizing the needs of our families and our students in the community, the youth in the community, and really thinking about bringing together service providers and organizations to kind of come together and address some of those preventative measures that could be put in place so that we curb some of those at-risk behaviors from our students and help bring things and put things in place to kind of bring those things down.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you might be sitting in the audience, and if you have questions, I just want to direct that you can email Jenny Marquez if you have any questions, and we will get them answered, not today, but at a later time. So next item on our agenda is confirmation items, and they are as presented. We have meeting minutes from February 13th and special meeting, February 13th special meeting and February 27th regular board meeting, personnel, acceptance of gift donations, surplus property disposal report, funding proposals and applications, and Give but No Foundation grant. If there are questions, now would be the time to ask or have discussion.
I don't have any questions, Laura.
Okay. I have no questions, but I did read through the Give a Note Foundation grant of, it looks like an in-kind grant of $25,000 for the Woodburn School District.
Yeah, that's correct. It's an exciting opportunity. Thank you to Mr. Rogers who's here today in the audience. I just want to give kudos to the work that he did to put this grant together to start a potential new CTE program at the high school. So it's really exciting and generous donation and the hard work that's paid off to get it.
Thank you for that. If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the confirmation items as presented.
I make a motion to adopt the confirmation items as presented.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor of adopting the confirmation items as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Now moving on to board action items. We have no old business this evening, but we do have new business. The first item is school closure makeup days.
So the board recalls, in January, we had 3 school closures due to inclement weather. Tonight in your board packet on page 91, you find the recommendation to not make up those 3 days. We typically, we have until April to make a decision, bringing this forward now in March so that we have an opportunity to communicate out to families about the impact it may or may not have on them for the summer, and to begin to have some summer planning as well for our summer school and get some dates established for when we are able to start those. And so tonight I'm asking for I'm recommending to not make up those 3 days. They do not impact our instructional minutes, which we are well exceeding with the minimum requirement from the state of Oregon.
We need a motion, Jenny, right?
Yes, we need a motion.
If there, anybody have questions regarding the recommendation?
So did we have extra days within the school year in case that we had to?
Yeah, the state of Oregon sets a minimum instructional minute requirements. We are well exceeding those even with the loss of those 3 days. So we still exceed the number of minutes, the minimum number of minutes required by the state of Oregon.
If there are no questions or discussion, would anybody like to entertain a motion?
I make a motion that we adhere to the decision made that the 3 school days due to inclement weather not be made up.
All in favor of the oh, there a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor of taking no action to make up the school closure days, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Our next item is policy JFCA, student dress code, student dress and grooming.
So over the past several board meetings, some questions have come up around the dress code, and what's on page 92 of the board packet is a draft of a survey to be able to gather some feedback from our families and our students and community around concerns that may be in place regarding the current dress code. So what you see is a draft of what the survey may look like. There are some questions there down below with some how concerned are you about the current dress code policy with the rating scale? Another question there, does the current dress code policy sufficient prohibit clothing that disrupts the educational process? Yes, no, and then an open-ended question. So tonight, bringing this forward as a draft survey for the board to take a look at, give feedback, input on those questions. If these are the questions that the board would like to see, if there are other questions that the board would like to ask, so that we can move forward with gathering some feedback to bring back to the board.
I'm glad that we're doing a survey. I would like to see, I guess, a little more depth information in regards when, because these are going to be coming from the community, the people that work for. I want to know what exactly the parents' thoughts, the community's thoughts are specifically into what, how it affects the educational process. I just want to see where the parents are in regards to that thought process and see how they interpret that.
So what would that look like?
Just asking them, what specific dress code are you referring to? Because I've talked to a lot of people in the public, just, I'm not only sitting here on these days. I talk to many people every week, and it's, the comments have been made. I understand that this is a pretty hefty topic, but, we have both sides, let them be, but then you also have kids need to dress appropriate. There's also the fact of, it's no secret what's going on. It's been, expressed here tonight. The gangs, regarding the clothing, which, that it does affect, it does instill fear. And so in regards to that, those are comments that I've heard. It's like, cuando llegan los pandilleros, ahí vemos los pandilleros. And so it's just wanting to know what their thoughts are on those specific, because those are the two, if not the only ones I've heard of, is regarding the comment about the halter tops, the sports bra, the midriffs, and then the gang clothing, the big baggy clothing. And I bring those up because those are specific ones I hear about all the time. So just kind of see what parents' thoughts on that are.
Do you have a possible question that would provide that feedback?
That is something I would think of, and I could present it later if that's something that, or is it something that needs to be done now?
Well, we'd like to approve the survey today.
Okay.
I would like to see if we can add a question that says that all children are supposed to wear shirts that are up to elbow length and no above the chest, the collar, just below the collarbone and past the stomach, the waist. And then, of course, pants that are secured with any form of, so basically a question, would you be acceptable to have the following? Appropriate wear, t-shirts to the elbows, past the stomach point, the belly button, and pants that that are above the hip at the waistband. Are parents acceptable to that? Will they be able to also be responsible that their children come to school like that? So, because it's not just the school that's responsible, the parents are responsible as well, because they're buying their children these clothes. They're allowing their children to buy these clothes. So it's like, the school's responsible, yes. The school has to follow policy, but then the parents also have to follow the policy. They have to be willing to take the responsibility. So the question is, are they willing to step up and take responsibility that their children wear that appropriate wear?
So we all as a community need to work together. So it's not just pointing fingers at the administrators and the students and the staff, but we as parents in the community also need to step up and take responsibility. Are they willing to do that? So I know I got to shorten that question, but can we add a question as such?
I guess, with going that, I guess the question would be, what would you recommend as a parent? What would you recommend that would be reasonable for your child or for any child in the district? Because once you start setting specific standards, that's when people start getting, that's when the water starts rippling. And like I said, not everybody's gonna be happy, but I think a recommendation, asking the parents, what would you recommend, as far as parents?
Well, I think number 3 is an open-ended question where it allows the person completing the survey to share.
Does that open-ended question suffice? Or are you asking for something more specific, like would like tell us?
Be more specific.
I think specificity.
So there's also laws that we have to abide by, correct?
Yeah, I would recommend and caution the board that whatever feedback we gather, we review with legal before making any changes to the dress code policy to ensure that it is abiding with laws and that we are protecting everybody's rights.
And that's why it's good to do this, to get the best informed decision, you know, and based on legals and policies.
So, Juan, can you speak a little bit too about, so once we have these results, you know, like how concerned are you? Let's say they're concerned. Does it disrupt the educational process? Let's say they say yes, then what? What would be the next step?
A step might be for the board to gather this information, to measure, take a temperature check from the community, from families and from students around how much concern there is, that we could take a look at that at the next board meeting based on what the concern is, draft then a plan of action to, you know, gather more specific feedback if there is a great concern, to be able to explore further changes perhaps to the dress code. But this could be a temperature check to kind of get the pulse for what concern exists. That could be, the board could then look at the April work session and decide how to proceed. And maybe ask some more of those open-ended questions, more specific, maybe set up some opportunities to listen and to hear from different groups of our community.
And I understand that there's, you know, the line that we walk of, this is a child, this is their identity, but then there's the side where, okay, this type of clothing, specifically gang wear, gang clothing, gang affiliation clothing, sends a message. So I guess that's where we're trying to go, we're doing preventive measures with what, you know, they presented with the city. And now we're trying to corroborate or collaborate in regards to trying to implementing hopefully something that we could all agree upon that would hopefully also be a preventative measure in that regard without, like you said, passing any judgment, it's just, there's certain things that signal fear. So they bring ideas and thoughts. And I said it earlier, you know, I vi unos pandilleros por ahí. I vi estos, and it's always pandilleros. In Woodburn, it's always pandilleros. And I asked, because obviously the question would arise, ¿y por qué piensa que son pandilleros? Porque tienen la ropa toda guanga, toda grande, y andan ahí haciendo sus cosas. So and that's why I asked this question based on those statements, is the baggy clothing to the community members insinuates gang affiliation. And with that goes along with fear based on what's already happening in the city and after school activities, you know, what's being posted on the videos, the Instagrams and all that. So.
Okay, so I wonder how we can brainstorm a question.
Are you concerned about the
your
bagginess of clothes?
I guess with the heightened situations, because obviously there's been concern expressed. How do you, I guess, it's gonna be a tough one. I think it's gonna be a tough one. Because like you said, the boundaries of legalities, the boundaries of non-discrimination. But trying to implement something that would bring attention to that specifically, because that is the issue right now that I've heard from here and out in the community. And that's why I've talked about it before in past meetings. It's how do we address that the best possible reasonable way? And there's gonna be more questions to be asked, like you said.
So then going back to that, how can we propose a question to,
To the parents,
in the survey?
in the survey, yeah.
Yes, to address that. What do you think would be an appropriate question to ask if your concern is gang attire, let's say?
Well, I know,
And I want to let the board know that too, that there exists within our gang and secret society policy, there are processes that administrators take when a student is suspected or in a gang, where then they are able to specifically address that student and create restrictions on what that student is allowed to even wear to school. So there is that within the gang and secret society policy. We have students that are on those types of contracts that restrict what they're able to wear.
Yeah, because I understand there's identity, but then there's also intent. What do you intend? What message do you intend to send based on your identity? In this case, gangs. So, and going back to yours, we were said, we want to be a voice too. I would like to have a question that says, what would you recommend? That's specifically, like, I want to know the ideas of parents and how reasonable it can be that we can entertain, what we can entertain. So that would be one question, more specific, as we stated earlier. What would you recommend as a parent?
So a fourth question about what would you recommend be added to the dress code?
Yeah, just to get a feel of the community's ideas and what they would like to see. And it's going to be a big process. I understand that, but at least we would be able to allow them to be heard.
I took notes of your question that you said earlier. You said, you mentioned, what would you recommend as a parent that would be reasonable wear as a child? That would be reasonable, you said some reasonable something as a child, or reasonable
Where
attire? Did you say attire?
yeah, reasonable attire.
For a
Appropriate
child.
attire.
For appropriate for a child.
Well, because appropriate, everybody has different definitions of appropriate, obviously. So I think reasonable would be better. It'd be a more generalized word, because I think even with reasonable, there could still be, I don't want to use the word standards. That's too strong, too restricting. But there's got to be some give and take, but it's still got to be reasonable. So does that make sense? Because you say appropriate, you have, for example, apostolics, churches believe long sleeves, long dresses. You have, there's all different kinds of beliefs. That was just an example. So I think instead of appropriate, reasonable.
Can you read back that question one more time, Jenny?
What would you recommend as a parent that would be reasonable attire for a student? You said child, but I'm saying student.
Yeah.
You go ahead and add that question.
I know the dress code was changed back in 2015, right? Is it 2015?
2018.
Or
was the last time
2018?
the board was- or, sorry, the dress code was revised.
Okay. And I'm just curious, back then, was there parent voice in that process? Were parents involved? Was there a survey sent out to parents and families?
As I recall, that process was initiated by a petition that was submitted to the board by a group of students at the high school. And then a task force of students was commissioned to provide input on the revision of the policy. So a group of students met over the course of several months, staff and teachers and students, and brought forward a revised policy to the board back in 2018 that was adopted. I don't recall families participating in that process, but that's just my recollection.
Thank you. So it sounds like this time we're giving our families opportunities to share, to give opinion, to fill out a survey where they can state their opinion about our dress code, because that wasn't previously provided to them.
I don't recall families being involved in that 2018 process.
And then I'm just curious, did back then, did anything about like school uniform come up?
About a uniform?
Mm-hmm.
No, not that I recall. The uniforms conversation coming up back then.
Can we add a question? Are you willing to follow a uniform dress code? Because we've heard from the audience, they wanted.
Yeah, but we don't comment on what was shared during public comment.
Understood.
Thank you.
If you personally, Rosie, want a question like that,
No.
You don't want a question about uniforms?
I myself, as personally don't, because as we know, our community is very diverse and many people don't have the funds and the financial ability if there was a uniform code enforced, because they wouldn't have that ability to purchase a uniform for their child. That's why, if they did, then they would probably go to a private school where they would be paying for their school students' education, and which would have a strict dress code such as uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're a public school, public district, we don't have that, and we don't have the funds for that.
It's not something that I looked into, so I wouldn't respond for you. But I would be curious if. Oh, you can't hear me. I'm sorry.
So as a community, very diverse, with people that do not have the means to purchase uniforms, I wouldn't recommend for a uniform dress code, because not everybody can purchase uniforms for their children. And if they did, they would probably put their children into a private school, which probably does have a strict uniform code, and they would be able to purchase uniforms for their children. But because we're a public school, it's not something that we should require of our children, of our community, of our families, that many of them are already on a tight budget. So that's why I said that it's not something we should consider to add to the questionnaire.
Just looking at the policy and going back to what I said, it disrupts. We could read this over, but in reality, I've had, not a huge number of parents, but where it disrupts the educational process. Kids are going to school in fear of getting bullied and beaten up. To me, that is a disruption of their educational process by just, again, the look of the clothing specific to this, not genre, but it's classified group, if you will, the gangs. And so trying to defeat the fear, again, in a reasonable manner, is going to be a challenge, but I do believe that it can be done. Yeah, kids, kids deserve to be free of fear in regards to their education, going to school, and not having to look over their back and, and I only say it because I've heard it, and it sucks to hear it. And we're a great community. We got great schools. We just got some work to do. And, it's just a collaboration of us, them, and one in a whole to come together and try to make it work. And I'm glad we're bringing the survey out to see where we can come together.
Laura, any thoughts? No? Given that we're going to provide a survey, and I don't know the cost of uniforms or something similar to that, but given that we're already asking our families such a question, I wonder if it would be appropriate to ask a question about something connected to uniforms.
Well, another question I just thought of was, how has the current dress attire affected you? I don't know if that falls into, I know it says how concerned, does it prohibit, is there anything you'd like to share? And sometimes if you see, is there anything you'd like to share? They might think of this or something else, but to be, again, more specific, how has it affected you or your student specifically? Because I just talked about like fear.
Is that a response to my question?
It's a second.
Or is that a second question?
Oh, you did? I didn't hear it
Yeah.
very well.
I think I hear two proposals for additional questions. A question about, would you support a school dress code type question? And then a second question, like, how has the current dress code affected you?
So once you have those results, Jimmy, I'm just curious, how would you categorize them? What would you use? How would you use that data? How would you use it? What would be the purpose? So when you're asking an open-ended question like that, how would you categorize the response? Right, because you're going to get various responses, all types of responses for that specific question. And so I guess my question is, like, what is the purpose? Or when we do have all of those responses, what are you looking for?
Basically to see how it does affect it. I mean, the effect that it does have. It does have more effect than people realize, obviously. And just to see what the rate of concern is, it would be good to get a bigger aspect of concern, a better idea of what concerns parents do have. And in regards to what we're talking about, in regards to the specific, the two that I mentioned, I mean, if this is going to be open-ended for anything, then obviously we'll do that. But look at the two main ones that I've heard about. And it's not to say that I want to do what I want to do. I would just look at those more closely than others. And
Can you help me understand that a little bit more?
so I guess it's just like data. You send it out, get the responses, and basically weigh out what is more concerning. If you get just different response. I mean, I don't know what kind of responses we're going to get. It's just, I know the responses I've gotten, and that's what this question was based on, was those two specifics. So if we're going to send out a survey, just the general survey about dress code, and I almost feel certain that a majority of these would be specific to the ones we've been referring to. So
So we now have 6 proposed questions. We have the 3 that's on there in the board memo, and then the 3 additional questions. What would you recommend as a parent, guardian, that would be reasonable attire for a student? Would you support a school uniform? And how has the current dress code attire affected you or your student?
Any thoughts on what we have so far? Laura, any suggestions? Any thoughts, Superintendent Larios, based on what we have?
These are the 6 questions that we'll move forward with. We'll work now to translate them and get them into multiple languages and put together a survey that we could send out to families and to students and begin collecting data next week so that we could have data to bring forward to the board in April.
I guess I was gonna ask a question. That was my next question. We put the survey together, what would be the timeline? Because I think the more voices, the best response we're gonna get, obviously. Like tonight, it's awesome to see so many people. And, just with the announcement, we got people involved. They got people, it's there. So getting people involved in this survey, I know it gets mailed out and whatnot, to get as many voices as possible in regards to this situation. That way we all work on it as a community. So, I mean, are we gonna just send it out for a week, you said? Or 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
We could begin next week and start pushing it out and gathering feedback, gathering data from the survey, bringing that forward to the board in April. If there is not enough of a response, then the board could make a decision to gather feedback and data in a different way.
Other thoughts around that?
I would approve to move forward with these questions. But like you say, in 2 weeks, if we don't have responses, let's say that people are only answering 3 of the questions, then will be clear to us that we need to minimize the questions so that way we have a little bit more of a filtered response. But again,
I mean, it's very likely that we will probably have a higher response for the more specific questions.
True.
And you'll probably have less responses to the open-ended questions.
recommendation.
Mhm. So the same survey will go out to students, families, and staff.
I approve the survey as revised and recommended.
Is there a second? Or do we have more questions or discussion? Rosie? Anything else?
No?
I guess I just think it,
Laura?
you know, in the end, I think it would be beneficial because obviously, once we come up, once something is done, I think it would help alleviate the judgmental eye as well. Instead of saying, oh, there's those people, that kind of person, that kind of kid. And, just at this point, anything that we can do to instill preventative measures, I think would be very beneficial.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, I need a second.
You currently have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I motion.
Right, so I need a second.
You need a second if you want to
Oh.
take a vote. Mhm.
All right, are we ready to vote?
No, you need a second first.
Oh.
You have a
That
motion
is
on
what
the
I
floor.
said, right. I did ask for a second.
What was the motion? I'm sorry.
I said I would like to move to approve the revised and recommended additional questions to the survey for a 2-week period to see the results from the students, parents, and staff, or students, family, and staff.
Is there a second?
That's the
All in favor of approving the survey questions in addition to the questions included in the survey, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Yeah. All right, so, all right, I can't hear you. All right, motion passes 4-0. Okay. Third item is the superintendent's recommendation for the renewal and non-renewal of probationary administrators, extension and non-extension of contract to contract administrators, extension of contract to contract teacher, and offer of employment renewal and non-renewal of contracts to other non-represented supervisors and coordinators as listed on the attached recommendation list and contracts.
So these recommendations come to the board each March, as in statute. And what you see are the different contract extensions for administrators, licensed, classified, and supervisors. So the different lengths of the contract period are dependent on what you'll know is the type of contract that the individual has in place. A temporary contract is only for the 1 year. So it appears as a non-renewal. The educators and administrators then are also governed by the ORSs, the state statutes on the number of years in their contracts. So this comes to the board each March for approval. The recommendation tonight is to approve those as presented in the packet.
Is this the motion?
Yes, the motion is on the bottom there,
Okay.
on the bottom of page 93, the motion.
And I can make that motion, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I move to approve, wait, just a second. Resolve that the Board of Directors of Woodburn School District accepts the superintendent's recommendations for the renewal and non-renewal of probationary administrators, extension and non-extension of contract to contract administrators, extension of contract to contract teacher, and offer employment renewal and non-renewal of contracts to other non-represented supervisors and coordinators as listed on the attached recommendation list and contracts. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation? Do I need to read all that? For renewal and non-renewals, for item number 3, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. And item number 4, that was added by amendment, is board resignation and vacancy. I don't have any information on that one, Jenny. Are we just, it's not on here. Oh. So earlier today, we received the resignation of board member Anthony Medina. Board, you have this letter in front of you. I move to accept the resignation of Anthony Medina and declare board member position 3 vacant. Is there a second? Any questions, discussion? And so all in favor? Of
Aye.
of accepting the resignation 4-0. So next item connected to that is the recommended board vacancy timeline for position 3. It ends June of 2025. So applications for position 3 will be accepted until April 19th, 2024. The post-board vacancy notice will be provided on the website, March 13th. There will also be the Woodburn Independent and Facebook post, and weekly until April 19th. So if you're in the back and you can't hear me, do you mind moving up if you cannot hear me, but I will try to speak up again. Sorry for that. So there is a timeline connected to the board vacancy, and that will be posted on the website, also through the Woodburn Independent and the school Facebook page. Applications will be available at the district office or on the district website, and candidate interviews will be conducted April 23rd during the regular meeting. The board will vote and appoint on April 23rd during the April regular board meeting. The board will follow board policy BBE-AR vacancies on the board to select and appoint a candidate. I move to approve the board member vacancy timeline for position 3 as presented. Is there a second? Any questions or discussion?
I do have a question. So let's say we don't have any applicants by April 16th. Are we able to extend it out further?
Yeah, and we've done that in the past, not specifically for the school board, but for other vacancies as well.
Other positions?
If no further questions, are we ready to vote?
Sorry, who was the second on that?
Cynthia.
Jimmy.
So all in favor of adopting the board member vacancy timeline for position 3 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. So the next item is future agenda items. I know that we have a lengthy list, but are there additional reports or topics that you would like to hear about in the future?
And so just to clarify, in regards to the incidents that, again, going back to the incidents, French Prairie, I mean, just everything going on, that we're gonna present, right? The city was gonna present, is that correct, at the meeting, or?
Well, tonight we had the city in partnership with the district present on some of the work being done preventatively. Is there a different, like,
Oh, okay.
or?
No, that's, yeah, I understood it differently in regards to it, but okay, yeah.
Any other items? If not, we can move along. Item number 8 is board calendar. We will see here, we have March 13th tomorrow. We are attending the STEM Festival and Maker Party. April 9th, we have a board work session. April 16th, budget work session and first meeting. April 23rd, regular board meeting. All right. So it looks like we made it to the end of our agenda. And I now call this meeting to be adjourned.